Herzlich willkommen bei der Kanzlei Rieger und Partner. Ich bin Cornelius Rieger. Bei mir heute ist unser PIP, der Personal Insolvency Practitioner Mark. Herzlich willkommen. Danke, dass du da bist.
Thank you for inviting me, Cornelius. Yeah.
Und wir sprechen heute über ein doch nicht allzu kleines Kleinödchen in Irland, nämlich im Insolvenzrecht, nämlich wie man das Familienhaus sichern kann. How we can protect the family home in a bankruptcy in Ireland.
Okay, so it's an interesting question because I get asked that a lot. What happens to the family home in bankruptcy? And I would always say, well, it's clear the official assignee what his role in is a bankruptcy, but let's just talk about it practically. So let's say you have a husband and wife. The husband is in bankruptcy, his business failed, and that's the reason for the default. But the family home is fine. The mortgage has been paid. There's no issue with the secured creditor, and it never has been. The official assignee will always say, well, that's fine. These are the scenarios I deal with. So, for example, if it's in positive equity, so we have a property worth 200,000, a loan worth 180,000, there's 20,000 euros in equity. The official assignee now owns 50% of the equity in the family home. He's got three things he will do. First one, he will go to the bankrupt and say, okay, can you find 10,000 euros from external sources to buy back your interest? If he can't, he will go to the spouse and he'll say, can you give me 10,000 euros and now you own the full property? And that's the first port of call. If it's a case that can't happen, the official assignee will have no choice. Towards the end of the bankruptcy term, which is 3 years, so he's got 3 years to deal with this decision, which is a difficult decision. He must go to the High Court, to the judge, and ask for his approval to sell the family home. But that's a last resort. I believe that if there's equity in family home and it's 10,000 euros, that somebody within the family will say, that's okay, that's fine. And then the normal rules apply. They move on with their family, they live in the house, but if they default in the future, that's an act of default. So I would always look at that from the perspective of the family home isn't the issue. The second scenario would be we're in negative equity. So we have a loan of 350,000 euros, we have a house worth 250,000 euros, so it's 100,000 euros underwater. Official assignee has no value there. There's nothing there for him. He won't, force it into to be sold because he can't. What will normally happen there is, over the course of 3 years, he would keep an eye on the value of the property to make sure it's not undervalued. And if it's a case that after 2.5 years, he must make a decision, what's happening with it. And if it's a case that there's still no equity in it, at the end of the 36th month, that will revest back into the bankrupt and they move on with their life. Because although it's in negative equity, they have affordability, they have the same contract with the bank, so they'll pay that loan as long as they can continue to pay it over the course of the mortgage term. This is what happens to the family home in bankruptcy. But it's important. The family home must be appropriate for their needs. It's not, a 6,000 square foot villa we're talking about. We're talking about a normal house.
Yeah.
And the official assignee is not looking to throw anybody in the street. He's there to, number one, see what the asset is, get a contribution for it, and move on. And that's all that happens with the family home in bankruptcy.
It's amazing. You can't lose, especially if you have a little bit money on the side, if you have some friends, some wife, or grandma, grandmother, you can't lose your home.
No, and we have had cases where after the bankruptcy, we're just assisting the family with this process.
Yep.
We'll talk to the official assignee. We may have to talk to a family member, and their question will always be, so if I give my sister 10,000 euros, she will now own the house 100%. Yes. And it will be over then. Yes. I'm happy to give the 10,000 euros. And that's a case that we have.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
The problem is let's say if it's a 300,000 house with a 200,000 mortgage, there's a lot of money up there. There's 50,000 euros. But the official assignee say, okay, can you put together that 50,000 euros over 24 months?
You can pay it in parts.
Yeah. He is always willing to work with the bankrupt and his dependents to work his way. He has no interest in going to the ultimate with his asking the judge, can I sell this home? And I think that's very fair.
That's more than fair.
I think that's more than fair.
So in other EU member states, you're losing the house. The house, it's gone. So this is a really fair way how you deal with people who needs to go in bankruptcy. It's amazing. An der Stelle gibt es eigentlich gar nicht mehr viel zu sagen. Es kann das Familienhaus nach irischem Recht behalten werden. Das ist so einzigartig innerhalb der Europäischen Union, das gibt es in der Tat kein zweites Mal. Wenn wir Interesse bei Ihnen für ein irisches Insolvenzverfahren geweckt haben, freuen wir uns, wenn Sie uns kontaktieren. Rufen Sie mein Büro an oder hinterlassen Sie ein Kontaktformular. Wir melden uns umgehend mit einem persönlichen Termin oder auch gern per Zoom oder per Telefon. Das Erstgespräch ist wie immer kostenfrei. Und dann erläutern wir Ihnen gerne die Vorzüge eines irischen Insolvenzverfahrens. Vielen Dank für Ihre Zeit. Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you and goodbye.